Hello, Next Stop Everywhere listeners. This is one of your co-hosts, Jesse Jackson. As you hear us talk about, I do another podcast called Set Listing Bruce. I hope some of you check it out every once in a while, but just in case you don't, I had a guest recently, Eric Johnson, who hosts a Face the Music and ELO podcast, and we spent about 7 or 8 minutes at the start of the podcast talking Doctor Who. And so I thought, as a little bonus episode, I would include that talk here on the Next Stop Everywhere feed. So this is a bonus episode. We'll be back in our normal feed with a regular episode where Charles and his guest companions and I talk all things Who. But enjoy this little talk.
The Doctor in the TARDIS. Next stop everywhere.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. But today, we are getting off the Bruce Springsteen train, and we are getting on the spaceship, maybe? Tonight, we are talking Electric Light Orchestra with my new friend, Eric Johnson. Eric, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, Eric and I have exchanged a few texts via Facebook, and he mentioned how much he loved ELO and Jeff Lynne, and I went, ooh, that sounds like something I'd love to talk about. But before we do, tell us a little about yourself. Give us your elevator speech.
Usually my elevator speech is just standing quietly in the back waiting for other people to get off the elevator so I can have it to myself again. But my history would be a cartoonist, writer, musician, podcaster, just a freaking Renaissance man, I guess.
Very nice.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You're on a roll. Continue. You're doing
okay.
great.
It's Legos Doctor Who. I noticed. I don't know. Just as much of a dork as I am, I saw that 1701 is in your Skype or your name here, and it's like,
yes.
Oh, registry number of the Enterprise, of course.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. So,
yeah,
I have a lot of geek interests. Also, pretty creative guy. It's more of a creative genius than Kanye West. I guess maybe less smug about it than he is.
Very nice. Favorite Doctor?
From the original set, Dr. Tom. He just right from the start, it was like, oh, I like him.
Yeah.
And I've seen or heard every single episode of Doctor Who from the very first one in '63 until, well, I haven't seen Lady Who yet. I'm still waiting for those episodes to be free on Amazon Prime. I also like Patrick Troughton. I didn't think there was enough of him in his episodes. Should have been more Troughton.
Yeah.
As for New Who, I love David. It kills me every single time that I see him leave, and he did it twice.
Yes.
And just when he says, I don't want to go, it's like, I don't want you to go either.
Yes.
And Dr. Matt would be a close second.
Yeah, I came to Who through Torchwood, which is a little unique, but I was someone in a Firefly podcast actually mentioned that they had a theory that Malcolm Reynolds was actually Captain Jack. That
Oh.
because of the long coat and the thing,
Mm.
and I went, who's this Captain Jack guy? And one of my best friends who had been trying to get me to watch Doctor Who, Ken, said, well, here it's from Torchwood, and so he watched it, and so I watched the first couple seasons of Torchwood, and I said, man, I really like this Captain Jack guy. Could you give me the episodes he's been on Doctor Who?
Mm-hmm.
And Ken said, it's just easier to give you just here. Here's the
Yeah.
here's the disc. So I
Yeah.
started with Eccleston, burned
Mm-hmm.
through it, and then Matt Smith's was the first I kind of watched live. The other
Mm-hmm.
things I DVD. And so Tennant is my Doctor too, though I think like all true fans, the nuances of each Doctor is unique. Each of them brings
Oh
a little
yes.
something special. And
Mm-hmm.
I was not a big Eccleston fan, but as we go back, Charles and I on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast I helped Charles host, we've rewatched Eccleston's episodes. I've gotten more kind of in love with him as the Doctor, and I now wish we could have had another season or two with him in that role.
Yeah, and I wish he was in the Three Doctors. What was
Yes.
that? The time of the Doctor?
The 50th
Yeah.
anniversary special. Yes, I
Yeah.
think I would have loved to seen him do that. Yes, even
Mm-hmm.
though we got, we got the War Doctor and that was
Mm-hmm.
amazing, but yes, it would have been very cool to see him. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, yes. I know what you mean about Eccleston because I went through Capaldi
Hmm.
as he was, as his episodes were coming on, and I was just kind of, he's not as whimsical as David and
Yeah.
Matt, which is I like whimsical doctors,
Hmm.
but now that I've been my wife is she came in one time while I was watching a Dr. Matt episode, and was just like, oh, I like him.
Hmm.
And so we started watching the New Who's from start to end,
Yeah.
and we just started Capaldi, so I'm rewatching those episodes, and we're a few episodes in. It's like, actually, Capaldi's not as bad as I remember. I actually kind
Yeah.
of like him. And the funny thing about Doctor Who, at least for me, is I hated the show. I only knew of it in the 80s is when I found out
Yeah.
about it. So I had the bad special effects and the cheesy acting and
Hmm.
the synthesizer music that was supposed to be,
Yeah.
background music. And that was just, this is stupid. Because I came of age during Star Wars and
Right.
Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek movies. So I was used to freaking awesome special
Yeah.
effects and big
Exactly.
orchestras. And then Doctor Who was using a flashlight
Hmm.
or toy laser gun that is obviously a toy laser gun.
Yeah.
So I hated it. And I was staying with a friend in San Francisco, and her fiance loved Doctor Who. But she had to work, tape the episodes while watching them. And I'm my last day in San Francisco, and there's Doctor Who. It's Dr. Colin.
Okay.
And he's going through his things, and I'm rolling my eyes. This is stupid. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
And the cliffhanger was that a giant statue of him starts to fall, and Colin goes, and end credits, and and all just like instantly like that. I'm like, what happens now?
Oh, how
And my
fun.
friend said, oh, you're just gonna have to watch episodes. Oh, I don't know when they're on in Phoenix. And
Yeah.
God knows what doctor they're at the time. What
Yeah.
happens? You have to find out. So it was just like instantly. I was like, oh, I love Doctor Who. Now I got to watch all these episodes. And it took 25 years
Yeah.
before I finally saw that episode and what happened afterwards.
Oh,
So,
that is a
yeah.
wonderful story.
Yeah.
You know what I love? Mark Waid, the comic book writer known for Flash and so many other stories. He was on a podcast and he was talking about that growing up, that Doctor Who fans were the fans that the Star Trek fans made fun of. He says I was a
Yeah.
Legion fan, I was a Star Trek fan, and we made fun of those guys, the silly
Mm.
scarf and all this stuff. He says, and I always had this disdain. He said, and then the New Who started, and
Mhm.
you see Eccleston, and he goes, run. And all of a sudden he went, wait a minute. And he said, I was captivated from that word. He says, I've
Yeah.
now gone back and I tell people that, in fact, we just talked about this to get us to music. My wife was watching the Ken Burns country music special. She and I were
Hmm.
both watching. And she was like,
Yeah.
she was listening to Jimmy Rogers and the Carter Family. And she's like, I don't want to say this out loud, but I don't think they're that good. And I said, what I talk a lot about when I first watched Classic Who, I had the exact feeling you did, Eric, of
Hmm.
going, oh, it's just cheesy and it moves too
Yeah.
slow and I don't get
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I said, but then now that we've gone back and for the podcast, we'll watch an episode and I quote unquote have to watch it so I can talk about it.
Hmm.
Your ear and your eye becomes similar as I mix my metaphors. Your palate acquires a taste for wine or whiskey or eating your steak rare instead of whatever
Right.
illusion you want to use.
Hmm.
And I said, I think it's the same thing for this music, Linda, because you're used to a modern sound. It's going to take a while. And by
Yeah.
the end of the episode, she's like, okay, I liked that Carter song. And she says, I do think you've got a point that you have to shift a gear in
Hmm.
your listening center or your watching center sometimes to appreciate something classic and to do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Pluto has started showing the classic Doctor Who's, and one time we were eating supper and I had it on the TV, and it was a Dr. Tom episode.
Mhm.
I think it was one of the really early ones. Um, and me and her were just like, I said, "Wow, I forgot how slow these episodes moved." But I liked how Tom played the Doctor.
Yeah.
I think that was really the thing that really kept me there. Because if it was anybody else, it was just who's the stiff, boring actor playing
Yeah.
a science guy who's curious. I don't think it would be as fun.
You
There
know,
is yeah, there is
I'm
something I do
yeah.
miss about New Who.
Yeah.
I miss the eccentric dressing. I
Yes.
I love the long scarf. I really liked Colin's Technicolor outfit. I
Yeah.
just thought that was pretty cool. So I miss that, but
Mhm.
David and Matt and the others,
Yeah.
the characters they bring to it is just, oh man, they're so good.
Yeah, and I think that you're spot on. Often when I'm watching Classic Who, it'll be a um, six segment. There'll be six
Hmm.
chapters to the story, and we'll say, you could have done three easy. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
but every once in a while, and there is one that just clicks all the way along. And it's like nothing
Hmm.
dragged at all.
Yeah.
Well, that was a nice little Doctor Who kind of, detour.
Yeah.